Welcome to this week's edition of the Webster Tarpley program. We are here on Unbound Radio. Prometheus is unbound, and the Promethean qualities of people, I think, are increasingly unbound, or at least they can be. Now, our main topic today is going to be the emergence of the Tax Wall Street Party in New York City, the tremendous fight, this magnificent struggle that has been put up by a thin line of heroes and heroines in the Big Apple, right, treading on that hot, gritty pavement of the sidewalks of New York. We're going to get a report about that, but remember, our focus here is not complaining, it's not sitting home afraid or taking counsel of fears. It's always action. What can you do to make things a little bit better? Now, the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech anniversary is upon us. That is to say, it is 50 years ago this week and next week that the Martin Luther King speech, I Have a Dream, was carried out. Now, you got to remember what that was. It was called the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Jobs and Freedom. Notice the order. March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Freedom doesn't mean much unless you've got a job. Once you've got a job, then you've got to look around for freedom, of course. And they do go together, but there it is. Jobs and freedom. And it was organized largely by Philip Randolph of the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, a union that really doesn't exist anymore, but it was big when there were sleeping cars. And if you go to Union Station in Washington, D.C., on the main concourse where some trains still depart, you will see a statue of Philip Randolph. He is the guy who did it. So it's a trade union event. The Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, Local 1199, the hospital workers in New York City, and many, many others came there. So we're urging people to come. Come and bring your sign that says Wall Street sales tax, 1%. Make Wall Street pay. And the United Front Against Austerity will be gathering on the Mall on this coming Saturday for the festivities and the commemorations at 9:30 a.m. Try to come to the Smithsonian Metro stop. Smithsonian. That's one of the main ones that serves the mall. Should be open. Sometimes it's closed for big events, so don't let that knock you off. Get yourself down there to the Smithsonian, even if you have to get off at Gallery Place or the Archives or whatever it is, or L'Enfant Plaza. You can get to the Smithsonian Metro stop. Congressman John Conyers is going to be giving a speech about his bill, H.R. 1000, which is to impose a Wall Street sales tax, not as big as what we want, but nevertheless, a Wall Street sales tax, and use that to create 3 to 6 million new jobs for people who otherwise might not have any chance for employment. It's the best ticket going. We'll be talking about that in the course of the program. See you on the Mall, 9:30 a.m. on Saturday with Congressman Conyers, and we'll be back in a minute. All right, our second segment here, it's the Webster Tarpley program. It's the afternoon of Tuesday, August 20th, and we do want people, if you're in the Washington area or nearby, please do come to the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream commemoration. But specifically, there's a big mall down there. You don't want to get lost in the crowds. Come to the Smithsonian Metro, and there you're going to find an event organized by Congressman John Conyers of Michigan. And think what you get. Conyers is, in many ways, the dean of the Black Caucus. He's been serving in Congress since 1965. He was elected in 1964, the year after the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. He's been there the whole time. The guy is a fighter. he's certainly earned any person of goodwill would give him a great deal of admiration. So this is a real historical figure, right? He's one of the very few that are still with us, and above all, he's still fighting. You get to support HR 1000, which, although not perfect from our point of view, at least takes some big steps down the path, right? A 0.25% tax on stock trades, it's essentially 0.02% on the derivative side, but that's still something, makes them reportable. And this then goes into jobs for the inner city, for Indian tribes. It helps keep public employees on the payroll. It's all to the good. And it's 3 to 6 million on budget, with the estimate that several million more would be generated by the multiplier factor. And you therefore also get to support Conyers and to support this, and you're really supporting, as I say, one of the most distinguished, most eminent figures of this entire civil rights movement in the United States over the last half century. The idea then is the Conyers people have invited anybody who has shown any interest in Tobin tax, transaction tax, trading tax, Robin Hood tax, sure, that too, or Wall Street sales tax, right, the real thing, to come. And it's important to be there and make that visible. When you have a big event like this, it's important that the nostalgia and the commemoration not overwhelm the programmatic part, because the communities that we're talking about here are still hurting. The youth unemployment, inner city, black unemployment is through the roof. And of course, that's the case for everybody in the United States. We need 30 million new productive jobs. Well, Conyers is here with about 6 million plus of those jobs, right? Plus the multiplier. So the Conyers group, the Tax Wall Street group, because that's what it comes down to. Tax Wall Street and create jobs, fulfill the promise of 1963 finally, 50 years later, will then proceed westward from the Smithsonian area towards the Washington Monument, and then end up as close as possible to the Lincoln Memorial for the principal speeches, right? But this is something that deserves people's support. I'm going to tell you in a minute about some really interesting things that Conyers did in terms of foreign policy vis-a-vis Iran. He stood out as a voice of reason on that. But what we need to get to today is the Big Apple, right? The emergence, getting the Tax Wall Street Party on the New York mayoral election ballot November 5th, the general election, not just the presence of Randy Credico on the Democratic primary ballot for that election on the 10th of September, but the real election, right, where you have to win the mayoralty, which is, of course, then on November 5th. So today's the day when the signatures had to be handed in. So without further ado, we are joined by Daniela Walls, who
Hi,
is...
Webster.
How you doing, Daniela? She is the person who has done a tremendous amount. Her contribution to this process has been second to none. So, Daniela, give us a rundown on what it looks like. Are we going to get the Tax Wall Street Party?
We're going to get the Tax Wall Street Party, I think, Webster.
Right.
You were just talking about the August 24th Martin Luther King march on Washington, D.C. I just wanted to say that Randy Credico is going to be there marching and supporting Congressman Conyers and HR 1000. Because this is a combined message of economic and civil rights. And Randy is a lifelong civil rights activist, but he realizes without regaining our economic rights that were stolen by Wall Street and the Federal Reserve, that the fight for civil rights is incomplete. Randy is going to remind those taking part in Saturday's march that Dr. King was as committed to economic justice as he was to ending racial segregation. King believed in what? Yeah, you're so low, but you said absolutely, huh? He was. King believed in full employment and income inequality. He realized, I think, that the gains, chime in if I'm incorrect in this, but I think he realized the gains in civil rights had not gone far enough, that they had not materially improved the lives of African Americans. And maybe some of your older members of the audience will remember that when King was murdered in 1968 in Memphis, he was championing an economic Bill of Rights on behalf of a thing called the Poor People's Campaign. A lot of people forget King died for fighting for economic justice. So Randy's going to come down.
Just on that, remember, the mature Martin Luther King is someone who says there must be a united front of the civil rights movement, all races, the anti-war movement, right? Get out of Vietnam, no more imperialism, and the union movement, labor. Because remember, in Memphis, what was he doing? He was supporting a strike by black sanitation workers, black garbage men, the most disadvantaged. He was there. That's how he died. He fell in the course of that effort. So yes, wonderful. We'll be glad to see everybody at Smithsonian Saturday, August 24th, 9:30 a.m. at the Conyers HR 1000 Tax Wall Street Create Millions of Jobs event.
Yeah, great. We're going to be there. So a caravan of taxis arrived a couple of hours ago at the New York Board of Elections. We had, I wish maybe Beethoven should have been playing in the background.
Do we have pictures?
We have pictures. We have pictures. I will post them onto the website. We had our candidate, Randy Credico, escorted by the election lawyer and a couple big guys from the United Front Against Austerity. They all marched in Webster into the New York City Board of Elections office at 42 Broadway and delivered over 9,000 signatures.
Fantastic.
So I can barely breathe. I think this is very moving, huh? And
right, and above all, it looks like you now have a fighting chance to win. If the requirement was just short of 3,500, 3,700. Well, you have doubled the minimum, and you know when these hack lawyers go into a line by line challenge and so forth and try to disallow these signatures. They're going to have to go some, right? They're going to have to do a lot of heavy lifting to throw that off the ballot. So
what is that? At 9,000, they'd have to prove over something like 60% of our signatures aren't valid. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm still very nervous.
As you should. As you should be. New York State is infamous for the hyper-technical method of throwing people off the ballot, and they come out of left field or right field with some idiotic, formalistic technicality. So we're cautiously optimistic, but our vigilance is unrelenting.
Well, we pushed ourselves to get as many as humanly possible. Like, we wanted to prove a point and also make ourselves bulletproof from their challenges that, are going to come from the city maybe or pro-Wall Street or the pro-Wall Street Democrat machine. But I think we're in pretty good shape. The numbers I think we turned in are incredible given the circumstances. Yeah, and unless they can prove that we don't have 3,750 ballot signatures, then we're on the ballot.
Yes, when they're not going to. I can't see how they can do it. Anyway, we'll be playing this out. Now, Daniela, there seems to be some problem with Skype, so just bear with me.
Is my sound bad? It's hard to hear you.
No, it's fine. Bit. Just there's a little box popping up that there's a problem with Skype. Don't worry about it. We'll just keep going, and if necessary, we'll call you back on Skype.
Okay.
So
I hope these we can get the heroes of the field, as you call them, to call in. But I haven't heard from the guys since they arrived at the election board because they said they can't use their cell phones inside the election office. I was hoping that Chris would be able to call in, but I think I just got a text right now saying he's still stuck in the election office. May not happen.
All right, fine.
But
we'll carry on here, right?
But these are the guys that petitioned for 12 hours a day and got our numbers through their superhuman sacrifices, you say.
And if I'm correct, the United Front Against Austerity volunteers have done as well as people who have vast experience in this. In other words, native New Yorkers who do this from time to time for economic reasons, let us say.
You mean the professional petitioners?
I want to keep it nice and vague, but the ones who do it for economic reasons, that we're competitive with them, right? So it shows the power of the program and of the idea.
Well, the word on the street from the petitioners that I think is really interesting is that the majority of New Yorkers were eager to sign for the Tax Wall Street party. I heard from them that even Wall Street bankers they came across said, yeah, I totally agree. Where do I sign?
Okay.
Perhaps they want to restore some sanity or respect to their profession, if you could call it that. But in some cases, the average banker was more quick to sign than some others less educated on the issue. That really surprised them.
Do you have any other good quotes or vignettes from the process? Because this is absolutely fascinating.
Oh, what do you find fascinating about the bankers wanting to sign?
Well, because it's it's counterintuitive, right?
Yeah. Well, the guy said that they said, we should be taxed. We should pay some tax. We pay no tax. And a few of them said, we think it's absolutely ridiculous that we get, the money. There is that Wall Street sales tax on the books, but they refund it every year.
That's the New York State Wall Street sales tax.
Yeah. And a couple of the guys they ran into brought up that shouldn't be refunded because that raises like $16 billion annually for the city. And they thought that was absolutely criminal.
I think that it's very interesting because if you're an intelligent banker, what you might conclude is it's not wise to make yourself a lightning rod for so much rage and so much protest. In other words, in the moment when the average person realizes that Wall Street pays no taxes, no federal income tax, no Wall Street sales tax at the present time, that's going to be a big wave of rage. The pitchforks are going to come out. And maybe these Wall Street guys figure, why don't we, you know what they say, bears make money, bulls make money, but pigs get slaughtered. Let's be a little bit less piggish, and maybe we'll fare better in the long run. That would be the beginning of wisdom.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they make enough money as it is. Why want to be hated on top of it? And the more their image goes down, the harder it is for them to do a lot of things, like get a date. I actually have a banker friend that called me and said to me, this is so hard nowadays, Daniela. I'm thinking of quitting and going back and getting my master's in education. And I said, why? And he goes, it's just not worth it anymore. Everybody hates us. So that's a step.
Right. Of course, class consciousness is needed, but then the point of this is to realize this in a constructive program of actual systemic reforms, right? So that we can get beyond this. Now,
you can't just shatter their image. We've got to come in with a program.
Right. This is not in the subjective realm, right? This has to be done objectively.
I think our filing today is the first step in establishing, our filing today is going to be the first step in establishing the Tax Wall Street Party nationally.
Right.
And I think it's a signature moment in U.S. history, not unlike FDR's signing the executive order establishing the Works Progress Administration.
Right.
I think this is a significant moment right now for fairness and justice.
Okay, we're coming up on a hard break.
Sorry.
We'll be back in just a minute on the Webster Tarpley program, Unbound Radio. Don't go away. Much more. Welcome back to the Webster Tarpley program here on Unbound Radio. We are calling on all persons of goodwill to attend the Martin Luther King I Have a Dream speech, March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, 1963. The anniversary of that is this Saturday, and we're inviting people to join with the supporters of Congressman Conyers of Michigan, represents Detroit, someone who's going to be a key figure, I think, in the attempt to defend the existence of Detroit as well as the rest of Michigan. He's also one of the deans of the entire civil rights movement, and the focus right now, H.R. 1000, his bill for an actual Wall Street sales tax, modest in dimensions, but nevertheless on stocks and derivatives, that could create between 3 and 6 million jobs on the federal payroll. These would be 1-year emergency jobs targeted for people who otherwise might get left behind, and there would obviously be then a multiplier factor. So Conyers at Smithsonian Metro. Congressman Conyers invites to the Smithsonian Metro on Saturday, this coming August 24th, 9:30 a.m. the Smithsonian, of course, and then the march goes across the mall to the west towards the Washington Monument, and then the Lincoln Memorial, where the afternoon then continues. And it looks like Randy Credico will be there, and others will be there. So bring your tax Wall Street signs, 1% Wall Street sales tax. This, by the way, is pretty much where the United Front Against Austerity got the Wall Street sales tax on the scoreboard the day before the inauguration, right? That January 20th, when we found the CNN broadcast booth there and somehow got that large Wall Street, 1% Wall Street sales tax sign in their face for their entire...
That was a great moment when you guys were all over the news behind those newscasters and they didn't know what to do. The whole news show was just a big 1% Wall Street sales tax signs.
They had Cindy Lauper or these other superannuated individuals. Right? Too bad. These are sad cases, but we livened it up. And remember, there will be a chance, by the way. I believe there will be broadcast booths down on the mall. There'll certainly be a lot of television cameras down on the mall for this event, right? I think some people may cover it to some extent, and there's a chance to bring your tax Wall Street sign and get that in there. Now, Daniela Walls, right?
This is going to turn quickly from the petition gathering to a campaign, and we want to do similar guerrilla marketing like that. Like people can come meet us in New York in Times Square and Rockefeller Center to get on shows like Good Morning America. We want to stand outside those studios holding tax Wall Street signs, vote Credico signs.
Absolutely. Let me just say a few words about this, right? This is really important. In Rockefeller Center, the Today Show of NBC is produced in a studio which is at ground level, and they always take part of the show outside. Good Morning America does something very similar also in Midtown. Even Fox News shows you that shot up 6th Avenue, Avenue of the Americas, looking towards the southern edge of Central Park. There's where you're going to need a bigger sign to be visible, but it can be done. It must be done. Now, Daniela.
We want people to come out in New York City and help us hold these signs at those shows.
Absolutely, because the point of this is not just New York for New York. This is the Tax Wall Street Party of New York City, which wants to become the catalyst, the seed crystal, the embryo for the proliferation of the Tax Wall Street Party all over the place. Now, specifically, from right now, Daniela, it's August 20th. There are now about 3 weeks left in the campaign of Credico on the Democratic ballot.
Right.
That vote is on September 10th. But now, assuming that all goes well and crossing our fingers and not tempting fate, we will then get practically 2 more months from September 10th all the way to November 5th, I believe.
Right. We're gonna immediately transition to become a campaign.
Tell us all about this.
Okay. Well, I hate to ask, but
sorry. Hard break. Come back in a minute. Hard break.
Okay.
Welcome back to the Webster Tarpley program here on Unbound Radio. Let's see. Is Daniela still with us?
I'm still here.
All right, wonderful.
It sounded like you hung up on me a couple times, but I'm here.
No, this is just, these are the glitches, right? This is all a work in progress. So anyway, look, we've got from August 20th to September 10th inside the framework of the Democratic Party, and then the wide open spaces from September 10th to November 5th. I've told people we want to get to see a little bit of New York from the best possible vantage point. Come and be a volunteer. Join this Credico Tax Wall Street campaign. Be a part of it, and then take that experience back to where you are and start agitating along similar lines. Not every place needs a Tax Wall Street Party, but many do.
It would be great if people could come to New York. I also made a list of some things that the campaign's going to need. If you want me to let you.
Right ahead, sure. Tell us about that. I guess the one thing we really have to do justice to is those national morning television shows, right? The Good Morning America Today show and this, Fox and Friends, I guess it's called. This is a place where you gotta get in their face, right? You gotta start sticking up some.
There are still ways to get in if you're creative, and I think that's an indispensable resource, and I think that's a great way to get on TV if they don't let you on inside, stand outside. We want people to come to New York and do all these kind of guerrilla actions with us. Everybody was so generous with donations to get us on the ballot, but we still need donations now that our petitions are in, because we're immediately going to transition to become a campaign. I'm just going to get to this for a second. You can donate to credico2013.org/donate, or like I've said, there's an easy to find button on the homepage of Randy's website at credico2013.org. You can also donate to the Tax Wall Street Party. There's a donate button on that site at taxwallstreetparty.org. taxwallstreetparty.org. So we've done our hard work now to get on the ballot, but this is where I think Webster, the fed-up majority, is going to have to come in and make an even bigger stake. Mm-hmm. And we're going to need everybody and anybody's talent and skills, especially with our limited funds. We're going to need as much grassroots talent as possible. We don't have a lot of money, so we're going to need people's creativity. If anybody has any ideas or suggestions, please contact me at taxwallstreetparty@gmail.com. And if you have a special talent, if you are a singer-songwriter, we're going to need Tax Wall Street Party songs. Mm-hmm. I made a little list of things so far. The list is going to evolve, but if you are a video editor, we need videos and commercials, humorous videos and poignant videos. If you're a website person or graphic artist, we need graphic memes and web maintenance. If you are a lawyer, we will always need you. All lawyers, step forward. We need
pro bono.
Yeah, pro bono. We need people to post and repost our memes and commercials on Facebook and Twitter. We need people to bring their own 1% Wall Street sales tax signs, Vote Credico signs, taxwallstreetparty.org signs, and a message to their own local protests and town hall meetings. The website's going to have some flyers that people can print. And if there's a protest going on in your area, inject some economic rights into there and print our Tax Wall Street Party. We want volunteers to also stump with us in the subways in New York City, in the busier subway stations on 42nd Street, just handing out flyers with us to get as much of the material out there. And then we talked about, Times Square. I'm going to keep an updated, in Rockefeller Center for the shows. I'm going to keep an updated list on the taxwallstreetparty.org website of what we need. And if you can fill any of these things, please let us know. But there's also going to be a place for users to make suggestions about what they think we need. So right under the list, there'll be a comment box for suggestions. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, moving forward, right now we're focusing on New York, but if you plan to start a party or branch in your state, you can call me and we can discuss what's required for state ballot recognition in your area. Everyone is welcome, left and right. This is an American party. And we have also mirror parties starting internationally. So check the list on taxwallstreetparty.org, and it'll tell you what we need. And also, you tell us what you think we need, because we're trying to just all put our heads together here.
Right, and it is, from some points of view, this is the continuation of Occupy Wall Street, having learned those lessons, right? Having learned that without demands, you get nowhere, and your demands have to be mass traction, bread and butter, kitchen table demands that express the need of working people and the labor force to survive. We're
different than Occupy Wall Street, because, the Tax Wall Street Party is a recovery movement. We're offering practical solutions for an economic recovery. And, this is the first political party in America that's almost exclusively focusing on, the financial oligarchy, that's sucked the life out of the American dream and middle class for the last 40 years. So this makes Tax Wall Street, party unlike any other existing third party, because we're not ideological. We don't have a Marxist or socialist or libertarian inspiration, but we are inspired by what our country was founded on and the American system. So our platform has the ability to appeal to a wide swath of voters across the political spectrum. But sorry, am I rambling?
No, it's fine. We're going beyond protest, right? We're interested in carving out pieces of power and exercising power to show the masses that we can solve these problems and that the existing ruling class parties cannot, right? So the Republican Party, clearly a candidate for collapse at an early phase, given the fanatical antics of its representatives, especially in Congress, and then the Democratic Party obviously has two wings, a Wall Street Party and a populist party. Now, if we can just hold on 1 second, I think we may have a caller here. Let me see if I can do this. Gosh.
Is that gonna be Dan?
Here we go. Let's try it. I'm trying hard to do this. Again, why don't you just say a couple of words and I'll try to figure out these toggles, right? I'm so sorry. My engineer has the day off.
Okay, should I talk about the Tax Wall Street Party while you figure that phone call out?
We're going to bring in, we're going to
try
to
by targeting,
and don't give up.
By targeting Wall Street and the private Federal Reserve, we're going to get to the core of the establishment to reestablish the American system of economic rights that once made our middle class the strongest and most productive in the world. We are demanding that the rogue Wall Street and Federal Reserve start contributing to the country's well-being. Each individual in this country pays a sales tax on everything they buy. So why shouldn't, I think Dan's calling me. Hold on.
Tell him he's got to call that number I gave him.
Dan, you've got,
and don't hang up.
He said the number doesn't work. You've got to call that number.
It does work. It's showing up on the screen, but he's got to hang on.
Try it. You've got to stay on the phone. It does work. Just call back. Okay. So by targeting Wall Street and the private Federal Reserve, we are getting to the core of the establishment to reestablish the American system of economic rights that once made our middle class the strongest and most productive in the world. We are demanding that the rogue Wall Street and Federal Reserve start contributing to the country's well-being. Each individual...
Hang on, Daniela, I'm sorry to butt in, but I think we actually have one of our leading field organizers. Am I right? Can you hear me? Hello? I'm trying very hard. We're doing everything we can. Activity, do. What is all this stuff?
Should I keep going about the tax?
Going, and you're just gonna.
Each individual, all of you pay a sales tax on everything you buy. So why shouldn't Wall Street pay some tax? And the Federal Reserve is our national bank. It's ours. So why should it be private? We think that this is a party that is going to wake the sleeping giant in this country. I don't care if you were a Republican from Oklahoma, a Democrat, steel worker in Pennsylvania, an environmental activist from Vermont. The Tax Wall Street Party should even appeal to the old Ross Perot people because they were demanding trade tariffs to control what Perot called the great sucking sound that comes with all these free trade agreements. Tell me to shut up, Webster, when it's
No, I don't know if I'm able to do this. I'm
Wall Street tax
playing with every button I can. Keep going.
The Wall Street tax is the key to saving our country's future. Without this tax, we are looking at a period of over the next 10 to 20 years of never-ending cuts and austerity. Our program will bring in what?
You're right. Yes. Quite right.
Our program will bring in so much revenue, Webster, that this 1% Wall Street sales tax, with this 1% Wall Street sales tax, that almost all of our state deficits will literally vanish overnight. It will protect Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid that every American will eventually receive. We can also have world-class schools again throughout the country. We believe state and local politicians or political officials will embrace this from every state because they're all burdened with these long-term debts. Taxing Wall Street turnover at just 1% will flood trillions, everybody, back into the economy. Let me see.
I'm afraid this is just. I apologize to Dan, but it just doesn't seem to.
We want Dan, but we can't.
Anyway, please.
Going.
Please apologize. Anyway, look, we've got
on
about 4 minutes now.
Okay.
Let's wrap up. Again, if you want to help, you want to volunteer, you want to contribute, what do you do?
You go to creditcode2013.org/donate. You go to taxwallstreetparty.org/donate. You can call me at 310-926-15884. Mail me at taxwallstreetparty@gmail.com. And get in touch. Tell us your ideas. Help us be more creative. Brainstorm with us. I think we need a lot of guerrilla fun type marketing and advertising thing. Anything you can think of. Martin Luther King, who said the creative majority is the creative minority in this country is the only thing that ever solved anything. So let's be the creative minority and come together and speak for the as FDR said, the forgotten man, the Tax Wall Street Party. Let's help us speak for the forgotten voice of the majority.
Yes.
Webster, you there?
That is the goal, yes. And I'm still trying, but I'm not succeeding.
I'll keep going.
Anyway, look.
Do you want me to shut up? Okay.
We've got about 1 minute. So, Daniela, we want to thank you. You obviously get tremendous, merit from coordinating so much of this. And thanks to our valiant organizers out there in the field. And you get the idea. So
they were desperate.
One last thing, Daniela. When will we know for sure if Credico Tax Wall Street is on the ballot?
A week from today, so next Tuesday show.
Okay. So
will be
next Tuesday. So that means you better come back next Tuesday.
We'll pass the window for them to be able to challenge us.
I see.
So I'll be a little bit, I'll have a bit of a stomachache for a week.
Right. We'll be on tenterhooks. Okay. Thank you, Daniela. Thank you for those who tried to come in. I'm sorry. It's not working.
The thing is that they're really stuck in the election office and they're having trouble with their reception as well. So I think we can get them next week.
For sure.
When they're settled.
We'll iron that one out too. We'll debug the entire process. Thank you so much.
Daniela.
Congratulations to you and to everybody there. And we'll be back in just a minute on the Webster Tarpley program. Welcome back to the Webster Tarpley program. I'm sorry, our call board somehow glitched this afternoon, but the idea, right? The effort now in New York, certainly for the next 3 weeks, and we really hope for the next 3 weeks plus almost 2 months. Get that Wall Street sales tax on the agenda, establish the authority of that concept, show people that without program, without hard-hitting, mass traction, economic demands that express the needs of working families to survive, you get nowhere. No petty bourgeois process reforms, nothing about campaign finance reform, good government, or other things. Right? Rather than reform the process, leap ahead to enact reforms that the reform process is eventually supposed to lead to, because working people can't wait. Their kids need tuition now, right? There's got to be dinner on the table tonight and so forth, right? And above all, no austerity. Roll back austerity, roll back the sequester, roll back the killer cuts. And what we're eventually doing here is out of this crucible of mass struggle, we've got to educate a new ruling class because the one we have is impotent. We've got a bunch of fools. Now, in the interim, you're not in New York. You're closer to Washington. Your path is clear. You're coming to the mall on Saturday, the 24th of August, and you want to try to be at the Smithsonian Metro stop, 9:30 a.m. Congressman Conyers has invited all of the principal groups that agitate or have opinions in these areas to come and get on the scoreboard for the question of the Wall Street sales tax, or as he calls it, H.R. 1000, which is the continuation of the old Humphrey Hawkins Act from the Carter years, but this time with an actual dedicated funding source, with these trust funds that will, some of it pays for job training and other parts of it pay for actual jobs. But just to put Conyers into perspective, right? I think the longest serving member of the Black Caucus, along with Congressman Lewis of Georgia, one of those two, anyway, could very well be Conyers. And Conyers has the bill, and Conyers represents this fighting front that we have in Detroit and in Michigan more broadly. Here's Conyers in the House on Wednesday, July 31st. I always recommend read the congressional record, right? When you go down to the Capitol, in the basement of the Cannon House office building, there's the Legislative Resource Center. You can get free copies of the congressional record, and it makes amazingly interesting reading. You find out things you don't know because the brainwashed media, right, didn't tell you. Remember, I actually did a commentary on this for President TV at the time. As soon as the new president of Iran, Rouhani, was elected, the forces of what can we say of conflict, those who thrive on conflict, introduced a bill in the Congress which passed lopsided both chambers, I think, to impose new sanctions on Iran to try to cut the Iranian export of oil by another 1 million barrels a day. And Congressman Conyers had the good courage to stand up against it. He's against the Nuclear Iran Prevention Act of 2013. And he points out part of this is the diplomatic stupidity of it, right? He says, look, Rouhani is new. You don't know what he might do, right? It might be quite positive, and certainly that's quite right. Instead of taking this moment to re-engage with Iran and pursue diplomacy, which is the only way to ultimately prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon, this is what he's concerned with, we are instead moving forward towards new crippling sanctions before we have the opportunity to see whether President-elect Rouhani's campaign promises will lead to new positive action. And he warns, does Conyers, against the nebulous position that Iran should not be allowed to obtain a nuclear weapons capability. And the question, of course, is what's a nuclear weapons capability? The term capability is not defined in the bill. When dealing with questions of war and peace, it is incumbent that we speak with one voice and not go off on these crazy things. So anyway, there's a negative vote, one of the very few, against the Nuclear Iran Prevention Act of 2013. So there's good reason to want to give Conyers a bigger voice in these proceedings. In other words, Conyers needs to have a good crowd following his programmatic banner so that he can contend with others who want to take this in other directions, right? And you've got to be able to show that you have a mass following and that you have the answers. And we hope to contribute to the passage of H.R. 1000, among other things, by what the Tax Wall Street Party and Credico will be doing in New York for the next 3 weeks, and after that, for the next 2 months. And this has been Webster Tarpley speaking to you from Washington, D.C. on the 20th of August. Back next week.